The last man who asked Adrian Kane to marry had left the room without his pride, his alliance, or the diamond ring he thought could buy an enigma. The ring sat in the center of the black walnut table, bright beneath the chandelier, surrounded by 12 men who had spent their lives believing everything had a price. Adrian sat at the head of the table in a charcoal suit, one hand resting beside an untouched glass of bourbon. He did not raise his voice. He never needed to. The Kane family will honor every business agreement already signed, he said, but there will be no marriage. Across from him, Victor Shaw forced a diplomatic smile. His daughter, his son, a distant cousin, it hardly mattered. The proposed marriage had never been about affection. It was territory dressed in white flowers. Adrian pushed the ring back across the polished wood. It stopped in front of Victor with a quiet click. Choose another condition. The room held its breath. Even the alphas seated nearest Adrian lowered their eyes as his scent sharpened through the air, cedar smoke beneath cold rain, controlled but unmistakable. Adrian hated that reaction. Obedience was useful. Fear was predictable. Both were safer than love. He had learned that before he was old enough to drive, when his mother's kindness became leverage in his father's wars. After that, Adrian made rules. Never promise what could be stolen. Never trust what could be threatened. Never give an enemy a name that mattered more than your own. By midnight, the council had gone. The ring had disappeared into Victor's pocket, and the Kane estate had returned to silence. Rain swept across the windows in silver sheets, bending the trees beyond the iron gates. Adrian stood alone in the library, staring at a family portrait he kept turned toward the wall. He told himself the meeting had settled everything. His future remained clean, controlled, locked. Then someone knocked on the front door. 3 slow strikes echoed through the mansion. Adrian glanced at the security panel. No vehicle at the gate. No scheduled visitor. Half the cameras had gone dark 10 minutes earlier, and the storm had cut the phone lines shortly after. A second knock came, weaker this time. Adrian crossed the marble foyer and opened the door himself. A man stood beneath the porch light, soaked through, one hand braced against the frame. He was younger than Adrian, broad-shouldered, pale-haired, and unmistakably alpha, yet he did not lower his gaze. His green eyes held Adrian's with an exhaustion that somehow looked like defiance. In his open palm rested a silver bullet engraved with the Kane crest. Adrian Kane? The stranger asked. Who wants to know? The man gave a tired, humorless smile. Ethan Cole. Thunder rolled somewhere beyond the trees. Ethan's knees nearly gave way, but he caught himself before Adrian could reach for him. There's someone inside your house, Ethan said, each word thinner than the last, who needs you dead before sunrise. Adrian should have called his guards. He should have shut the door. Instead, Ethan swayed forward, and Adrian caught him by instinct. The instant their hands touched, the restless pressure beneath Adrian's skin went completely still. Ethan woke beneath a white ceiling with the uncomfortable certainty that someone had already searched his coat, emptied his pockets, and decided he was dangerous. He opened his eyes slowly. The room was windowless, furnished with a steel table, 2 chairs, and a camera in the upper corner. His wet clothes had been replaced with a gray sweatshirt and loose black pants. Across from him sat Adrian Kane, perfectly composed, as though men did not collapse at his front door every night carrying warnings and engraved bullets. 2 guards stood behind Adrian. Both were alphas. Neither looked at Ethan directly. How long was I unconscious? Ethan asked. 43 minutes. Adrian placed the silver bullet on the table. Where did you get this? From the man who tried to hire me. To do what? Deliver a message. Ethan glanced around the room. I did. Adrian's expression did not change, but the air did. Cedar smoke spread through the room, edged with something cold and commanding. The guards straightened, then lowered their eyes. Ethan felt the pressure reach him like a heavy hand testing a locked door. His pulse quickened, but not from fear. It was strange. Familiar, almost. Adrian leaned forward. Tell me who sent you. Ethan held his gaze. Ask properly. One guard inhaled sharply. Adrian's scent intensified. The overhead light seemed too bright. The silence grew dense enough to touch. Kneel, Adrian said. The command struck the room with quiet force. One guard dropped to a knee before catching himself. The other gripped the back of Adrian's chair. Ethan remained seated. He looked down at his legs, then back at Adrian. That usually works, does it? For the first time, something broke through Adrian's control. Not anger. Surprise. Small, quick, and immediately hidden. Ethan almost smiled. "Who are you?" Adrian asked. "Ethan Cole. Former private security. Occasional courier. Terrible house guest. You are an alpha." "That is what every medical file says." Adrian studied him as if the answer had created more questions. Ethan reached toward his sleeve. Both guards moved at once. "Relax," he said. "I am getting the reason I crossed 3 counties in a storm." He withdrew a small black drive sewn into the cuff and placed it on the table. Adrian did not touch it. "That contains shipment schedules, access codes, and security changes for this estate," Ethan said. "Information no outsider should have. And yet you have it. Which is why the people who stole it would prefer that neither of us sees sunrise." Adrian signaled to one guard, who collected the drive and left. The second remained near the door, watching Ethan with open suspicion. Rain rattled somewhere above them. A moment later, the lights flickered. Adrian glanced toward the camera. "The eastern road is flooded," Ethan said. "Your communications are compromised. Sending me outside would save your enemies the trouble of finding me. You expect protection? Until morning. In exchange for information that may be false." Ethan leaned back. "You opened the door yourself. Some part of you already believes me." Adrian stood. The pressure in the room vanished with him. "You will remain in the East Wing. You will not approach the armory. You will not leave your assigned floor without an escort." He paused at the door, one hand resting on the frame. "And you will not touch me again." Ethan remembered the instant in the foyer when Adrian's body had gone still beneath his hand. Adrian remembered it too. That was obvious. 3 rules, Ethan said. "I can manage that." Adrian looked over his shoulder. "See that you do." Ethan gave him a tired smile. "The third one will be the first you break." The storm grew louder after 2 in the morning, but Ethan could not decide whether the thunder or the silence inside the East Wing was more unsettling. His assigned room was larger than his last apartment, with dark wood furniture, heavy curtains, and a bed that looked far too comfortable for a prisoner who had not officially been called a prisoner. He had just finished checking the window locks when every light went out. Darkness swallowed the room. A second later, red emergency lamps flickered on in the hallway. Ethan opened the door and found Adrian standing at the far end, still fully dressed, with one hand pressed to an earpiece that no longer worked. "You were told to remain inside," Adrian said. "Your electricity disagreed." Adrian ignored that. "The backup generator failed. The security controls are beneath the West Wing." "Then why are you walking east?" "Because the east stairwell is the only route that does not use electronic locks." Ethan stepped into the hall. "You need someone who knows what a compromised system looks like. I have trained staff." "The same staff who missed a stranger crossing 3 counties to reach your front door?" Adrian stared at him. Ethan waited. Somewhere below, a mechanical alarm began pulsing in slow, hollow intervals. "Stay beside me," Adrian finally said. That sounded dangerously close to a request. They descended 3 flights through narrow service corridors hidden behind paneled walls. The deeper they went, the colder the mansion became. Rainwater tapped through old pipes, and the red lights threw long shadows across the concrete floor. Adrian moved as if he had memorized every inch of the estate, but Ethan noticed the tension gathering in his shoulders. His scent changed too. Cedar smoke sharpened, while the cool trace of rain turned metallic and restless. "How long has this been happening?" Ethan asked. "How long has what been happening?" "The headaches. The pressure behind your eyes. The feeling that the room is becoming too small." Adrian stopped. "You are making assumptions. I am recognizing symptoms." "From what?" Ethan looked at him. "Experience." Adrian continued walking, but his pace slowed. They reached the generator room and found the control panel dark. Several wires had been removed with careful precision. No storm had caused this. Someone had wanted the estate blind. Ethan crouched beside the panel. "Whoever did this knew your system." Adrian did not answer. His breathing had changed. Too shallow. Too controlled. Ethan rose and saw Adrian gripping the edge of a workbench, his knuckles pale beneath the emergency light. The air thickened without warning. A wave of Enigma pressure rolled through the room, strong enough to make the metal door tremble in its frame. Ethan's instincts told him to step back. He stepped closer. "Do not," Adrian said, his voice strained. "Do not come near me. You are not trying to hurt me. You do not know that. I know you warned me." Adrian closed his eyes as if holding himself together required every ounce of strength he had. Ethan moved slowly, giving him time to object, then placed 2 fingers against Adrian's wrist. The effect was immediate. The pressure broke. The cedar smoke softened. Adrian drew one deep breath, then another, while the room settled around them. Neither man moved. Ethan could feel Adrian's pulse beneath his fingertips, fast but steadying. "What did you do?" Adrian asked. "Nothing." That was not nothing. Ethan released him, though some quiet part of him did not want to. "Maybe your body recognized that I was not afraid of it." Adrian looked at the place where their hands had touched. Then his gaze lifted, guarded and searching. "You should be." Before Ethan could answer, a faint click sounded behind the generator panel. He leaned closer and found a small transmitter hidden among the disconnected wires, its green light blinking steadily. Someone inside the mansion was not merely disabling Adrian's security. They were sending information out. Adrian removed the transmitter with a handkerchief and studied its blinking light. "This signal is active. Then whoever planted it knows we found the generator," Ethan said. As if the mansion had been listening, the emergency alarm stopped. The sudden silence felt worse. Footsteps sounded beyond the metal door, measured and approaching from both ends of the corridor. Adrian reached for the handle, but Ethan caught his sleeve. "Not that way." Adrian's eyes dropped to Ethan's hand. "You are breaking my 3rd rule again." "Technically, I touched your jacket." "An important distinction." "I thought so." The footsteps drew closer. Ethan crossed to a row of storage shelves and pushed aside a crate of old electrical parts. Behind it was a narrow brass lever built into the wall. Adrian went completely still. "How do you know that is there?" Ethan pulled the lever. A section of concrete shifted inward, revealing a dark passage barely wide enough for one person. "You can question me after we are somewhere without an audience." Adrian did not move. Suspicion rolled from him, colder than the underground air. "That passage was designed by my grandfather. Only family and senior advisors know it exists." Then your list of suspects just became shorter. A sharp electronic click came from the main door as someone attempted to override the lock. Adrian entered the passage first. Ethan followed, pulling the hidden panel closed behind them. Darkness wrapped around them until Adrian switched on a small flashlight. The beam revealed stone walls, old pipes, and a steep staircase descending beneath the estate. "Where does this lead?" Ethan asked. "An emergency cellar beneath the library." "You say that like you expect me to believe you do not already know." Ethan kept his eyes ahead. "I know where it used to lead." Adrian stopped halfway down the stairs. "Used to?" Before Ethan could answer, the wall behind them shook with a low mechanical rumble. Dust drifted from the ceiling, and the hidden passage sealed with a heavy internal lock. They continued downward and reached a small cellar lined with empty shelves. The exit door would not open. Adrian tried the control panel twice before turning toward Ethan. "Now we talk." Ethan leaned against the wall, suddenly looking more tired than defiant. Years ago, this property had another building on the north side. Official records called it a medical research center. Adrian's expression sharpened. "It was demolished when I was 16. The building was demolished. The lower levels were not." Ethan touched a faint scar near his wrist, then seemed to regret drawing attention to it. "I spent 4 years down there." The words landed softly, but the room changed around them. "My father funded legitimate medical programs," Adrian said. Not all of them were legitimate. Ethan looked toward the locked door rather than at him. "They studied how alpha physiology reacted to Enigma commands. Most subjects became ill. I did not." Adrian's scent tightened with disbelief. "You expect me to accept that my family created you?" "No. I expect you to understand why I knew the passage." "And why did you return?" Ethan finally faced him. His green eyes held no accusation, only exhausted honesty. "Because someone restarted the research. This time, they are not trying to create another alpha like me." The flashlight flickered between them. "They are trying to learn how to control an Enigma like you." For several seconds, Adrian said nothing. The cellar seemed to shrink around them, filled with the quiet hum of old pipes and the faint rhythm of rain above the estate. Ethan watched disbelief move across Adrian's face, followed by anger, then something more carefully hidden. "Hurt. My father told me the research center treated rare genetic conditions," Adrian said. "He told everyone that," Ethan replied. It made the locked doors easier to explain. Adrian turned away, directing the flashlight toward the sealed exit. His hand was steady, but his scent was not. Cedar smoke gathered in the cold air, edged with the sharpness Ethan had learned to recognize as fear. "You were a child," Adrian said quietly. 15 when they brought me here. 19 when I escaped." Adrian looked back at him. "And you came willingly tonight?" Ethan gave a tired laugh. "Nothing about tonight has been especially reasonable." A small cut along Ethan's palm had opened again when he moved the hidden lever. Adrian noticed it before Ethan did. Without speaking, he removed a clean handkerchief from his pocket and held out his hand. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Is this another command?" "It is basic first aid." "That sounds dangerously considerate. Do not make me regret it." Ethan placed his hand in Adrian's. Adrian wrapped the cloth carefully around his palm, his touch precise and almost formal. Still, the contact carried the same strange calm as before. The tension beneath Adrian's skin softened. Neither man mentioned it. "They called me impossible," Ethan said. "Not because I survived. Because I could stand near an enigma without losing myself." Adrian secured the cloth and did not release him immediately. "You are not impossible." Ethan searched his face. "That may be the kindest thing anyone in this house has ever said to me." A metallic sound interrupted them. The cellar door unlocked, and warm light spilled across the floor. Dr. Claire Bennett stepped inside with 2 estate guards behind her. Her gray eyes moved from Adrian to Ethan, then to their joined hands. Adrian released him at once. Claire wisely said nothing about it. "The security system is partially restored," she explained. "I found your location through an old maintenance map." Her attention settled on Ethan. Recognition drained the color from her face. "Ethan Cole." Ethan's shoulders stiffened. "You know me?" Claire stepped closer, studying him like a memory she had hoped was false. "I know your file." Adrian's voice turned cold. "Explain." Claire hesitated, then opened the medical case in her hand and removed a thin folder marked with the Kane family crest. "Your father ordered the program," she said. "But he did not create Ethan to resist enigmas in general." She placed the folder on an empty shelf. Inside were medical charts, genetic records, and a childhood photograph of Adrian. Ethan stared at it, then at Claire. "What does he have to do with me?" Claire looked directly at Adrian. "Everything. The researchers used samples from your family line. Ethan was designed to counter your scent, survive your commands, and interrupt your natural responses." The cellar fell silent again. Adrian's expression became unreadable. Ethan slowly pulled his bandaged hand toward his chest. "So, I was not created to stop an enigma," he said. Claire shook her head. "You were created to stop Adrian Kane." The words remained between them like a door no one wanted to open. Ethan looked at Adrian, searching for anger, disgust, anything he could prepare himself to face. Adrian offered nothing. His expression had returned to the calm mask that ruled boardrooms and silenced entire rooms. Somehow that was worse. "Did you know?" Adrian asked. "No," Ethan answered. "I knew the program used Enigma research. I never knew the samples belonged to your family." Claire closed the folder carefully. The records support his statement. Most identifying information was removed from the files available to the subjects. Adrian turned toward the guards. "Escort Dr. Bennett upstairs. Secure every record connected to the old program." Claire hesitated. "Adrian, isolating yourself from this will not make it easier." "I am not isolating myself." His gaze shifted to Ethan. "I am removing uncertainty." Ethan understood before anyone said another word. The brief warmth in the cellar vanished. The handkerchief around his palm suddenly felt less like kindness and more like evidence of a mistake. They returned to the library through the restored passage. Dawn had begun to lighten the windows, turning the rain silver against the glass. Marcus Hale waited near the fireplace, composed as always, with a sealed evidence bag in one hand. "We searched the east wing," Marcus said. "This was hidden inside Mr. Cole's coat." He placed the bag on the desk. Inside was a metal token stamped with the crest of Grant Mercer, along with a small access card matching the estate security system. Ethan stared at it. "That was not mine." Marcus gave him a regretful look that felt rehearsed. The card opened the lower service corridor, the same corridor used to reach the generator. Adrian looked at Ethan. "You knew the hidden passage." "Because I lived beneath this house." "You arrived with stolen information." "To warn you." "And now evidence connected to Mercer appears in your belongings." Ethan stepped closer, then stopped when Adrian's scent sharpened. Not a command. A boundary. You asked me who I was, Ethan said quietly. I told you the truth. You told me part of it. Because the rest sounded impossible. Adrian's jaw tightened at the word. For one brief second, Ethan saw conflict beneath the control. Then Marcus spoke. The safest course is to remove him from the estate before the roads reopen. Adrian remained silent long enough for hope to become painful. Finally, he looked toward the guards. Return his belongings. Take him to the front entrance. Ethan laughed once, without humor. So that is it. Until I know what is true. You already know what fear tells you. That is not the same thing. Adrian did not answer. At the front door, a guard handed Ethan his damp coat. Ethan slipped it on, then removed Adrian's handkerchief from his palm and placed it on the entry table. I did not come here to make you trust me, he said. I came because nobody else was willing to warn you. Adrian stood beneath the chandelier, every inch the untouchable leader Ethan had expected to meet. Only his eyes betrayed him. Do not leave the main road, Adrian said. That sounds almost like concern. It is an instruction. Ethan opened the door. Cold morning air swept into the foyer. Of course it is. He stepped outside, and Adrian closed the door between them. 1 second later, the restored security panel flashed red. An unauthorized vehicle had stopped beyond the front gate. Then Ethan's location signal disappeared. Adrian stared at the dark security panel as if refusing to blink could bring Ethan's signal back. It did not. The red warning light pulsed once, then again, while the mansion returned to its careful silence. Find the vehicle, Adrian ordered. The guards moved immediately. Marcus remained beside the fireplace, calm enough to make Adrian notice him for the first time. Mercer's people likely intercepted him, Marcus said, which proves Ethan was connected to them. Adrian looked at the evidence bag on the desk. The access card, the metal token, everything arranged too neatly, too conveniently. A memory surfaced. Ethan placing the black drive on the interrogation table. Ethan warning him about someone inside the house. Ethan returning Adrian's handkerchief before walking into the cold. Who searched his coat? Adrian asked. Marcus paused. My security team. Names. Adrian, this is not the time. That was not a request. The room tightened around them. Marcus lowered his gaze, but something in the gesture came half a second too late. Dr. Bennett entered from the corridor carrying the folder from the cellar and a small medical scanner. I found something you need to see. Adrian did not look away from Marcus. Show me. Claire placed the scanner beside the evidence bag. The blood on the Mercer token does not belong to Ethan. It belongs to Marcus. Silence struck harder than any alarm. Marcus's face remained composed, but his scent changed. Bitter. Cornered. An old injury, he said. Coincidence. Claire shook her head. There is more. Adrian, your recent medical samples contain a synthetic compound designed to intensify Enigma surges. It has been building in your system for months. Adrian finally turned toward her. My medication comes through your office. The sealed containers do. The doses administered inside this estate pass through Marcus. Marcus stepped back. You are trusting a damaged alpha and a frightened doctor over the man who has served your family for 20 years. Adrian's voice became very quiet. I am trusting evidence. Claire lifted the scanner. There is another reason Ethan could calm you. His body was designed to neutralize the compound. Every time he touched you, trace amounts transferred into his system. Adrian remembered Ethan's pale face in the cellar. The exhaustion he had mistaken for secrecy. Was it harming him? Claire did not answer quickly enough. Repeated exposure would weaken him, she said. He must have realized it after the first contact. Ethan had known. He had stepped closer anyway. Not because biology commanded him. Not because some invisible bond made the choice for him. He had done it because Adrian was in pain. Adrian looked toward the front door he had closed with his own hand. Where would Mercer take him? Marcus remained silent. Adrian crossed the room and removed the silver ring Victor Shaw had left behind after the council meeting. He slipped it into his coat pocket, not as a promise he understood yet, but as one he intended to earn. Then he faced the guards returning from the gate. The vehicle headed north, one reported, toward the abandoned research property. Adrian's fear settled into something colder and clearer. Secure Marcus. Open every communications channel. Release every vehicle in the lower garage. The guard hesitated. All of them. Adrian looked once more at the closed door. All of them. Ethan Cole came here to save my life, and I sent him directly into the hands of the people hunting him. He stepped into the rain without waiting for an umbrella. Now I am bringing him home." The abandoned research property appeared through the rain like a memory that had refused to stay buried. Adrian stepped from the car before it fully stopped, his coat darkened by the storm, his expression calm enough to frighten every man waiting near the entrance. He had brought no army into the building. Only Claire, 2 trusted guards, and the certainty that Grant Mercer wanted a negotiation more than a confrontation. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed above empty corridors that still carried the sterile scent of Ethan's past. Adrian followed the signal from Ethan's discarded tracking device to the central laboratory. Grant waited behind a long glass table, smiling as though he had invited them for dinner. Ethan sat several feet away, pale and exhausted but alert. No restraints held him. They did not need to. The room was sealed, and a small device near his chair released the same synthetic compound Claire had found in Adrian's medication. "You came quickly," Grant said. "He is not part of your organization. I assumed you would consider him expendable." Adrian looked only at Ethan. "Are you hurt?" Ethan managed a faint smile. Mostly offended. Relief moved through Adrian so sharply that he nearly showed it. "Nearly." Grant placed a folder on the table. "Sign over the northern routes, and he walks out with you." Adrian removed a document from inside his coat and set it down. Grant's smile widened until he read the first page. It was not a transfer agreement. It was a complete record of his payments to Marcus, his hidden accounts, and every illegal experiment linked to the property. Copies had already been delivered to the leaders of the remaining families. "You have no leverage left," Adrian said. Grant's smile disappeared. "I have him." "No," Ethan said quietly. He rose from the chair, unsteady but standing. During the conversation, Claire had disabled the dispenser through the building network. The sealed doors unlocked with a soft click. Ethan crossed the room on his own. Adrian did not reach for him until Ethan gave the smallest nod. Then Adrian offered his hand. Ethan took it. The familiar calm passed between them, but this time Adrian understood what it cost. "You knew touching me was weakening you," he said. "I knew leaving you alone with those surges would be worse. That was not your decision to make. It was exactly my decision." Adrian looked at their joined hands. For a man who had built his life around control, the truth was unexpectedly simple. Ethan had never been his weakness. Ethan was the first person who had helped him without asking to own him afterward. Outside, beneath the covered entrance, the rain softened to a steady whisper. Adrian stopped before the waiting cars. "I was wrong," he said. Ethan studied him. "That sounds painful. More than I expected." Adrian lowered himself onto one knee. Everyone around them went silent. The most powerful enigma in the city bowed his head, not from instinct, command, or defeat, but choice. He removed the silver ring from his pocket. Ethan's eyes widened. "Adrian, I am not asking you to become an alliance or a symbol. I am asking for the chance to become someone you can trust." Ethan placed a hand over the ring box and gently closed it. "Not here," he said. "Not after a rescue, in the rain, outside the place that ruined half my life." Adrian stood, embarrassment briefly warming his otherwise controlled expression. Ethan smiled for real this time. "Ask me again when we are home." Adrian's breath caught on one word. "Home." "I will," he promised. Ethan kept hold of his hand as they walked toward the car. 3 months later, the Kane estate no longer felt like a fortress holding its breath. The damaged security system had been replaced, the hidden laboratory records had been turned over to federal investigators, and every member of the organization had been required to earn back the trust Marcus had quietly poisoned. Ethan refused every ceremonial title the council offered him. Instead, he built an independent intelligence network with its own staff, its own rules, and an office directly across the hall from Adrian's. Adrian claimed the location was practical. Ethan claimed Adrian had developed separation anxiety. Neither argument convinced anyone. Their relationship changed slowly, in ways too small for outsiders to notice. Adrian began asking before entering Ethan's office. He stopped using his scent to end disagreements. When a surge threatened, he told Ethan instead of hiding behind a locked door. Ethan helped only when he chose to, and Claire developed a treatment that no longer required him to absorb the compound himself. Some evenings, they shared dinner in the library. Other evenings, They sat in silence while rain traced the windows, both pretending not to notice how naturally the quiet had begun to belong to them. Adrian kept the silver ring in his desk. He did not ask again, not because he had changed his mind, but because Ethan had asked him to wait until they were home, and Adrian had learned that patience could be another form of devotion. One rainy evening, Ethan returned from a 2-day trip to Boston and found the front gates open. No guards waited on the steps. No black cars lined the drive. The mansion glowed softly through the trees, warm against the blue-gray dusk. Ethan walked beneath the porch light and knocked 3 times. Slow, deliberate. The door opened almost immediately. Adrian stood there without a suit jacket, his sleeves rolled to his forearms, looking less like the untouchable head of a powerful family and more like a man who had been waiting near the entrance for far too long. "You could have used your key," Adrian said. "I wanted to see whether you would open the door yourself." Adrian stepped aside. "I always will." Ethan entered, then noticed the library doors standing open behind him. Every interior door along the hallway was open too. The house that once seemed built from secrets now held light in every room. Adrian reached into his pocket and removed the ring. This time, he did not kneel. He stood in front of Ethan as an equal, his expression steady even though his scent carried the unmistakable coolness of nervous rain. "I cannot promise that loving me will always be simple," Adrian said. "I can promise that you will never become a possession, a bargaining piece, or a weakness I hide. You will have your own choices, your own work, and every door you need. I am asking whether you want to keep choosing this life with me." Ethan looked at the ring, then at Adrian. "That was much better than the parking lot proposal. I had time to revise." "I can tell." Ethan held out his hand. "Yes." Adrian's composure finally broke into a quiet, astonished smile. He placed the ring on Ethan's finger, then waited until Ethan closed the distance between them. Their foreheads rested together while the rain softened beyond the open entrance. "One condition," Ethan murmured. "Name it." Ethan looked over Adrian's shoulder at the bright hallway. "Leave the door open." Adrian turned toward the entrance, where morning seemed to be arriving early in the silver sky. "It already is."